Hello and welcome to Geeks Assembled. And this week we're going to be reviewing Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners, starring Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard, and Paul Dano. So let's go first to opening thoughts. And I'm going to change it up a bit, and I'm actually going to start with me because I'm dying to talk about this film. So, um, I actually think that this film, I saw it for the first time last year, and instantly on the first watch, it must have either very close got to, or is in my top 10 favorite films of all time. Um, it's 2 hours and a half of emotional torture, I guess is the right word for it. Because it basically puts you, the viewer, in the situation of if your kids got stolen, got kidnapped, how far would you go to get them back? And that's kind of the dilemma posed to Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard. Um, they're two fathers in a normal neighborhood. Um, and right at the beginning of the film, it's established that there's a strange looking van on the street. And the next minute, they go around and I think they're having a dinner party out there or something. And the next minute, the two daughters go missing. And Hugh Jackman's character specifically, I think he's the one that has the more leading kind of role in it than Terrence Howard, even though both of their kids got stolen. He's kind of he becomes a bit of a vigilante, I'd say, trying to track down who kidnapped his daughter and his family friend's daughter. And it leads him to some pretty dark places. This movie is absolutely phenomenal. Um, Hugh Jackman, I've heard many times, there's been many debates about who the best actor currently working is. And Hugh Jackman comes up an awful lot because not only is he an actor, he's a singer, is a dancer, and is an all-round entertainer. So he's a bit of an all-rounder, and that's what makes him so fantastic. And if you've only ever seen him in Wolverine or anything like that, X-Men, I'd watch this film because it's a whole new kind of ball game. He really, really kills it in this. He's unbelievable as the father. Having said that, the cast is so phenomenal that he's not actually the best part of the film for me. The best part of the film for me is an actor who I'm very excited to see in the Batman very soon, as Riddler, and who I've had on my kind of radar for a while in There Will Be Blood, 12 Years a Slave, and Little Miss Sunshine, and that's Paul Dano as Alex with the speech impediment. He's a disabled, I guess 20-something-year-old person, and there's kind of a mystery around him because you're led to believe that he stole the kids very early on, and that leads Hugh Jackman to kidnap him and torture him, which leads Hugh Jackman's character down a dark path. And I just think that he steals it, to be honest, for me. To play such complex, tortured character like that, hats off to Paul Dano. I don't think he gets near enough praise. And I think that if it was a justified world, he'd have at least 2 Oscars by now. For There Will Be Blood and for this. So, yeah, I think that the story, the direction, I think this was, as Lee mentioned before the cast, Denis Villeneuve's first English movie. It's just absolutely phenomenal. One of the best movies of the 2010s, I think, for sure. And I like how they kind of intertwine religion into it and the puzzle of the maze and that sort of stuff, and how it kind of like really challenges stereotypes. For example, you've got the priest that is turned into a bit of a paedophile hunter, and he's got a paedophile, the dead corpse of a paedophile that's killed 16 children in his basement, and it just really kind of hits home with all the kind of the way that the story is set up and how it kind of, I guess, weaves into other people's lives, because the priest doesn't really have much to do with the family. I guess he just comes up because they do a paedophile kind of thing, a search for paedophiles, and he comes up and it just kind of, it's one of them crimes where like the whole community is sort of sucked into it, whether you have anything to do with the family or not, and it really exposes a lot of skeletons in the closet for a lot of people. So yeah, that's my opening thoughts. Overall, it's just an absolute emotional rollercoaster of a film, and I do hope that Denis Villeneuve, when he's done Dune and all of these big sci-fi epics, that he does go back to films like this, because he really does them well. So next we'll go on to Tim's opening thoughts.
Well, I can't argue with anything that you've said already. I think you're right in a lot of ways. As we were discussing beforehand, though, this is a hard movie to watch because it's very depressing. It does put you in the shoes of the characters. I mean, you have to understand where the Jackman character is coming from, because he's so sure that he's right. He's so sure that he's right. He's made a fundamental mistake, though. He's wrong. I mean, he's wrong. And he's actually spends most of the movie torturing somebody who's a victim of kidnapping also. So, I mean, it really does. That's the twist in it. Also, I would point out, I like the way the movie ends, because you know what's going to happen, but it's left ambiguous. I mean, obviously he's buried underground. The cop is there, and here's the whistle, and you know where it's going to go from there, because they've already made it clear that the cop, who's really well played by Jake Gyllenhaal, has already pretty much made it, said that you can't get away with it. You can't do that. You can't do vigilante justice like that. And he already knows what this guy did. And so even though he's going to rescue the guy, he's going to go to jail. So I just think it just goes to show that he's what he did was wrong. I mean, even the other family is like, you're going too far. You can't do that. You can't do that. And they go along with him for a little bit, and finally they just get fed up, and so they abandon him as well to his line of thinking. But I think in a way too, I like the way they set him up to be a stereotype as well. He's like a Bible thumping Christian guy who's may or may not be building his own basement to get away from the rest of the world if the event happens, that kind of thing. Which I think that's just a dead end, because I don't think that's what he was doing. But they're making the audience feel like this guy's one of those guys that doesn't live in the real world. He's like over the top, and so his big downfall is that he does what he does, and the Bible would never tell you to do that. But I mean, he does what he does, and he's so wrong. I mean, again, like you said, this is a great movie, and it's got a great twist in it. And I think one of the reasons it's hard to watch is just such a downer, because I mean, you're watching two families that are so miserable, and they pretty much go around and talk to other families that are miserable. I mean, and it's just it does have a sort of happy ending, but it's tempered by the fact that, I mean, in the fact that the victims don't get killed. They very nearly do, but it's tempered by the fact that this guy went through all this shit, and now he's just gonna have to go to jail for it. Really. That's
Thank you, Tim. Let's go over to Lee next. Lee, what's your opening thoughts?
Well, I agree with what everybody said. It's dark. It's hard to watch. But it's a damn good story. Really well acted. Hugh Jackman is a force of power in this. You wouldn't expect him to do this sort of movie, but wow. The scene where he pushes Paul Dano into that shower room and he's burning him with that hot water is just... it made me cringe every time he turned that tap on. Yeah, I mean everything's connected in this. You know, the priest with the body in the cellar, which turns out to be the husband of the real kidnapper, um, and then the guy who they arrest was one of the kids who got kidnapped years ago but escaped. All this, it's all connected. I mean, also as well, Jake Gyllenhaal, his portrayal of Loki, not the Marvel Loki, of course, but Loki, the police detective. I mean, the twitch he had, the nervous twitch he was doing. I mean, that's just putting into a role. I mean, also with the tattoo, he suggested the tattoos on his neck and all like that. But to constantly keep twitching all the time must have been a hell of a thing to do. keep doing it. But yeah, and as you said, big thumbs up to Paul Dano. It's only a small role for him because, as I say, most of the time he's locked up in a box or he's chained up onto a radiator. I mean, the only sort of thing where you do see him fully, face and speaking is when he's in the police station. But yeah, it's an awesome movie. Underrated because not many people know about this movie. To be honest, it's just by chance I came across this a few years ago, and I was quite happy and glad when someone suggested it, put it on the list. So it was going to come up at some point. But yeah, as I said before we came on, the length of the movie, for me, it is long, but I'm fine with that because there was telling an important story. And to tell an important story, you've got to have all the details there, all the clues, and that's what they were doing. And also as well to have the family's experience, the wife's, Hugh Jackman's wife in this, sort of having a breakdown. It was just so well acted. But as you say, it is a downer of a movie. But these sort of movies are good as well. You don't always have to be a positive movie all the time. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good to sit down and watch this again. So over to you, Connor.
Thank you, Lee. Let's go over to Susan next. Susan, what's your opening thoughts?
Yeah, hella depressing. Man, it's tough to watch. Really sad. I really felt for these families all along. The twist I thought was that surrounded the kidnappers, the lady kidnapper, was intense. I mean, it really was, and it kept going all the way to the very end. Like there was still no resolution with with the story because the cop was hearing a whistle, but don't know if the father was ever going to get out of that hole. Because I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily look, where a car is parked unless you looked in the trunk, and then I mean, I don't know. It was incredibly uh, full of doom. I mean, both the initial, his survivalist sort of thinking, and his survivalist planning, with his son. Always, be ready for whatever. That quote that he said about how you're supposed to stay ready for anything that happens, and plan for the worst, expect the worst and plan for it, or whatever. I mean, there was that, and then there was the intensity with his wife, and then the complicity of of the other two, the father and mother of the other girl who was kidnapped. I mean, they both went into to torture Alex, and that was incredibly, mind blowing. And the other thing that was, oh man, it was just hard. I think it was set in Massachusetts, since they said Commonwealth, and there are not many. I don't think that there's any Commonwealth besides Massachusetts in the United States. And during that time, during the early 2000s to 2010, they were uncovering the problem with the priesthood all over the state. Like, it was a big deal. Like, it was a big revelation. So that's why they pointed the fingers at the priest. But then when they found out that he was actually torturing and killing other people, like, that was a revelation. Like, that the other guy was the pedophile, or the other guy was the kidnapper. So that was a twist. I mean, it just twisted on so many levels. Like the twist around the woman kidnapper was like incredibly devious. Like, she would force him to drink this beverage that would render them, unable to stand up for themselves. I mean, that's amazing. What a plot device that was. Anyway, so much good stuff. Back over to you, Connor.
Thank you, Susan. We'll move on to favourite moments next. Let's go first to Tim.
Well, first, for a minute, I would like to agree with Lee, though, about the time. I think this is one of those movies that may look a little bit long, because it's 2.5. I mean, that's always a bit long for a film. But he's right. It's all very necessary to the plot and to the various twists in it. And to me, it didn't feel long watching it, even though this is the second time I've seen it. I think it's just a question of them ratcheting up the tension, because it's a very tense movie. I mean, I love that scene at the end, especially when he's been drugged and he's trying to rescue the little girl who's also been drugged, and he's fighting his way through traffic, through ice and snow, and he's half asleep, and so he managed to pull it off. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, it almost takes you out of the movie, because it's not that kind of movie, but I mean, it's very well done. If there's one thing that I have a question about, though, I do think it's an odd choice that the director made to, when he first confronts the kid, quite wrongly, I mean, at the police station, and the kid says something that provokes him. We actually hear the kid say it. So, I mean, I don't know if that was the right decision to make, because I think it should have been left ambiguous, as if the kid really said that, or he just hear it that way, the Jackman character, because that sets in motion all of these events where he's convinced the kid did it, and he, kidnaps him and locks him in that room and goes throughout all this process with him. And the kid's been innocent the whole time. I mean, we're led to believe that he's the kidnapper, but he's basically a victim of kidnapping himself. So I just wonder if that might not have been better to leave that more ambiguous, this kind of movie. But I mean, to be fair, that's just a minor niggle. I think it doesn't take anything away from it.
Yeah, it's like I think sometimes Jackman's temperament in this film, and obviously he's acting, it's not really him, kind of, you're supposed to root for the main character, but there's some points where you just can't.
No, you can't. Yeah, you can't. He's just too much.
Yeah, one moment that particularly, as you were saying, that stood out was when he kind of got aggressive with Terrence Howard's daughter when she was first refound. When she was in hospital, and he was getting all kind of aggressive with her about where his child was. And it's kind of like, at that point, he's already kind of lost, because I think he's already, tortured Alex and everything like that. So he's gone down that dark path anyway. But I think really by the end of it, you just come to realize how far Jackman's character has come from being a family man, really, to a pretty angry vigilante. He's quite a dangerous man in many respects, I think.
He starts to get quite brutal with his family as well. So I mean, while you can sympathize with him in the beginning, you're right. By that time, you're kind of like, okay, I'm not on his page anymore.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Let's next go over to Lee.
Well, just thinking what you just said about when Jackman confronts Alex in the police car park. He might not have said that. It might have been in Jackman's head because nobody else heard it. So,
but Lee, I did go back and rewind and try and hear it, and he did actually say it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we're seeing it from Jackman's point of view.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So it might have been in his head what he saw and heard. And of course, the directors put that in the movie just to confuse people. It could have been. I don't know.
I think in many ways it was because Jackman wanted him to admit he did it. So then he
wanted an admission so badly.
Yeah, even if he was completely innocent, which he was. Yeah. I think it was really a father's kind of anger and guilt that he let something happen like that to his daughter.
The guy was proven guilty before proven innocent, sort of thing.
Yeah.
There was a scene more poignant now, where Alex is just strolling down the street, walking the dog, singing "Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells." Seeing as he's now playing the Riddler in the Batman movie, I don't. But it's a shocking movie, especially the confrontation, because it gets you. If you've never seen it before, you're still thinking towards the end, if Alex hasn't done it, who has done it? And then all of a sudden everything sort of meshes together, with the maze and the RV, and then you think, oh yeah, it's the woman. And then and then it all comes, and then the confrontation in the kitchen with Jackman and the woman, with the drinks and the guns, and it's just powerful acting from all the cast. To be honest, that's the standout thing. Just telling a good story. So, yeah, over to you, Connor.
If I could point out one thing about that scene you just mentioned also, and again, this is the director telling you that this character is unlikable, the young kid, because he's kind of mean to the dog that he's walking. He starts to torture it a little bit as soon as he gets out of the sight of the woman. And that's to let you know two things, though. It's a clue, first of all, that this kid has been tortured and treated very badly after being kidnapped, because a lot of times people that are abused will also take it out on animals later. But also it's to make the audience not like him and to agree with Jackman at that point that, hey, this guy must be the one, because look at how terrible he is with that poor dog.
The director is playing with the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. Let's go to Susan. What's your favorite moment?
Favorite moments were the moments where the woman, Hugh Jackman's wife, played by Viola Davis. No, hang on, 1 minute.
Maria Bello.
Yeah. Maria Bello, where she is on the bed crying, and he is like, I mean, it's driving him insane, like this whole situation, and she's like, go find our daughter. So I mean, it sets him on a terrible mission. Anyway, another moment that was, I mean, I did have to go back and recheck whether or not he said something about they were all right when I left them or something like that. And I mean, and then the other moment that was really good was the moment um between what's her name? Well, between the lady kidnapper and Alex and Jake Gyllenhaal's character, where you're seeing a you're seeing into the abyss at that point, because you're like, um, you know, you're at the point where she still looks innocent, and it just looks hopeless. Anyway, so I guess those are my two favorite moments. Yeah. And I like her, like the girl's brother. I like the way that when she was when they uh, when he was trying to motivate his father and get motivated himself, like that was incredibly difficult. And when the um, Terrence Howard and Viola Davis were there in the torture chamber, basically together, and they basically gave permission for this to continue, and that was really like, whoa, those were big moments for me. um yeah. Okay, back over to you, Connor.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, my favourite moments, one that nobody's mentioned yet, which I'm quite surprised about, is I think one of the most hauntingly emotional moments of the entire film, and that's when Hugh Jackman is called into the police station because they've found the bloody clothes at the apartment that they suspected the kids were being held at, and you find out later on that the blood isn't actually blood; it's pig's blood. But the way that Hugh Jackman plays that scene, you're never going to see that in a film again. That's just so raw and unbelievable. It crucifies you as a viewer because you sympathize so much with him in that moment, even though you might never have been in this situation before. But I guess even just being a father or a mother, for example, watching this film, you can feel, that's every parent's worst nightmare, and he realizes it so well. Another of my favorite moments, as Lee mentioned, was the shower scenes. You have to wince every time that them shower valves turn, because behind that wooden box, there's a disabled 20-something-year-old getting tortured, for something that he didn't do. And you just cannot imagine if that ever happened in real life, what that must be like. And that is why I think for me, Paul Dano really kind of steals it, because he's one of the most kind of complex, emotional. It's just unbelievable to think what he went through as a character, and he plays it with such like truth that it's almost as if he went through it himself, and that's how good. That's testament to how good, Paul Dano as an actor is, I feel. Another scene that I mentioned that I liked, in fact, two scenes. The vigil scene where the guy is kind of lurking around and Loki catches his eye and does that chase through the backyards. That's intense. And also, I'm wondering if I'm remembering this right. I think someone gets into Hugh Jackman's house, and the mother has taken pills or something, or she's taking pills to cope. And Holly's, I think that was the daughter's name, wasn't it? Holly. Holly's older brother kind of hears what's going on, and it's a really creepy sort of horror-esque moment. It just mixes and meshes with so many different emotions. You end up coming out the other end of it exhausted, because you've actually experienced in 2 hours and 30 minutes so much raw emotion. And I think that's what makes one of these films, this film, one of the best, probably one of the best ever made in this genre. Because it's just, I don't know how whoever wrote this film managed to, I guess, talking to victims of similar circumstances. But you can imagine every moment of this kind of happening. And it never feels fake. It never feels like it's a movie. It feels like you're watching the Madeleine McCann thing, or following a real life case of a missing child. It's just absolutely unbelievable from Denis Villeneuve. It's almost it's almost downgrading the movie, I think, to pick specific favorite moments, because all of it is just so good, I think.
I think that, if I could just say, I think it's a perfect tragedy because of what happens to this man. I mean, and the people he tortures and stuff. Because to be fair, it has a happy ending. The girl is saved in the very last minute. I mean, she could have been poisoned, and so I mean, the families get their children back. I mean, but it's still a tragedy because of what this guy put everybody through.
So, yeah, I mean, also as well, when you get to the end of the movie and then you sit down and you think, wow, Alex couldn't have told him anything because he didn't know anything. You know what I mean? The guy was going through that much torture, and it was constant questions. And as you say, that's when you sort of change your views on the Hugh Jackman character. Okay, yeah, he was after his daughter. He wanted his daughter back, but the poor Alex, as you say, he couldn't give him any answers. He wasn't holding anything back. I mean, okay, he must have known the children were there because he was in the RV with his aunt. So it was said that he was there. But with his mental age and stuff like that, it's a hard movie, as we say, a hard movie when you start to think of the things what have gone in the movie, and what Hugh Jackman did to him, what the aunt and her husband had did so many years ago with these 16 children. But yeah, you think, well, poor kid, he's been put through hell, and he's come out at the end of it, and he's got nothing to show but just scars.
Yeah, it's like Tim mentioned, the fact that there was a happy ending, but even in the fact that it's a happy ending, I didn't really feel the weight of it being a happy ending, because you spent so long in that kind of emotional treadmill where it's just so intense and so in the opposite direction to being happy.
But
I think that's the point of.
You don't actually have a happy ending.
Every character at the end of this movie is scarred in certain ways.
Yeah, but my point is that it could have been a lot worse too, because at this point you already know where the movie is going. I think that's why they end the movie the way they did, with the ambiguity of him being under the ground and the cop Loki.
Yeah, did
he maybe not.
Yeah, did he get him out or did he walk away?
Yeah.
Well, I would also say that we should point out too that Loki also goes on a bad arc as well, because he makes some big mistakes at the police station when he loses his cool with that other guy, and that guy manages to get the gun from the policeman, kill himself before they get the information they need. So he's also got quite an emotional journey in this film, because he actually sympathizes with the father at first, but then he starts to understand this guy's never going to listen to him. You remember when he confronts him at the liquor store, and he's just like, "Why don't you just let me do my job? I'm going to do my job, and your girl's going to come safe." And the Jackman character is never convinced that they're going to do. He has to do it himself. That's a big tragedy there too.
Yeah, because I think as in real life, when someone's kidnapped, I think it's something like the first 36 hours are the most crucial. Because after that, kind of the chances of you ever finding the person diminish.
Or finding them alive.
Yeah, diminish by the minute. And it really is kind of almost a race against the clock sort of movie, even though it doesn't ever really kind of press on the time scale of things. Like the Susan's background there, the poster said every moment matters. So it really does. You feel like it does. And just knowing kind of the real life statistics around missing people, you feel every moment really is crucial. And I think that's just what makes, even though as we've mentioned it's 2.5 hours, it's important that it's that long, because it has to tell the story right, I think, and it does. And I think that it's a bit long maybe, but it's a perfect runtime for a movie like this, even though it is so emotional. So yeah, that's favorite moments. We'll next go on to final say and rating. So let's go over to Susan first. Susan, what's your rating and final say?
I'll give it a 9. It's just devastating. Surprised at this movie, and doing this podcast, I'm like revisiting parts of the movie, and it's just, man, what a horrible experience. Anyway, back over to you.
Thank you, Susan. Lee?
It's a powerhouse of a movie. It's dark. It's emotional. As I said, it pulls on your emotional strings. The actors in this give their all. They really do. So just for that, it gets 10 snakes in a box out of 10.
Thank you, Lee. Tim?
I agree with Lee 100%. I think it's not a movie you'd want to watch all the time. It's not a movie that when you recommend it to your friends, you would say it's a great movie, but it's a very uncomfortable movie. And it's very well made like that. You can't fault it for the acting. the script, the direction, especially. It's just an amazing film. It's just very much a downer, and so it's one you have you have to accept that, but you still have to admit it's a great movie. So I'm also going to give it a 10.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Exceptional movie. I believe it was nominated for a few Academy Awards in the outside categories, not the main categories, which it should have been, really, because you can't, films like this aren't a regular thing. You get hard-hitting subject matters all the time, but like Spotlight with Mark Ruffalo delved into paedophilia. It's kind of you get movies like that all the time, but never so well made and in such kind of way where the tension really works the way that it does in this film, and just leaves you by the end of it really drained.
So you mentioned Spotlight, and that was the revelation of all the stuff, and that was during this time frame. So that's why, and a lot of it had to do with the Archdiocese of Boston here.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it, because I do remember seeing that a few years ago, and it's kind of a similar. It's connected in some small ways, but yeah, it would be really great actually, even though it's not something that we could do psychologically every weekend. Would be great to kind of delve into more uncomfortable movies like this. I'm sure there's many out there.
Every cast we do is uncomfortable.
Yeah, from a certain point of view, I guess it would, yeah. But yeah, just a fantastic movie, and Denis Villeneuve really made his mark with it, and he's ever since he's just gone from strength to strength. Apart from Blade Runner 2049, which I don't is a bit iffy. But yeah, that's our review of Prisoners. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, give us a like, throw us a comment if you wish as well, that'd be nice. And if you want to join in the cast, send a message to Lee, and I'm sure he'll respond, and we can get you into a cast at some point in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye for now.